Shalom, Kohalo Yabashim Yahushua. It's the elite who should pay for the past sins of slavery. The idea of collective guilt is a sham. It says a new exhibition called Slavery has opened in Amsterdam, and suggestions it's an issue that affects all Dutch people. Why it isn't solely the responsibility of those linked to the slave trade to atone for their forefathers' sins. Let me see that. It said it isn't solely the responsibility of those linked to the slave trade to atone for their forefathers' sins. So, let me get a quick precept. All right, so let's go back to it. It say, and slavery is the ultimate manifestation of how one person can be deemed of lesser worth than someone else. It says elites who appease the baying mob's apology addiction have stripped apology of all meaning. And they said there is no elite, so that just shows that there's an elite. Yeah, there are some elites out there, the so-called Illuminati, So let's get some precepts. So this is Revelation 13:10. Let's go back to that article, which says, it's the elite who should pay for the past sins of slavery. The idea of collective guilt is a sham. And all these heathen gonna get it, man. Starting with Esau Edom. It says, this Revelation 13:10. It reads, he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. And that started with Esau Edom. And the rest of these heathen, pursuant to Psalm 83. They all had a part in the captivity of Israel. It says, he that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here's the patience and the faith of the saints. All right. And also in that article it says, we're not all equal. Life doesn't function like that. Exactly. That's scriptural. It's Deuteronomy 7:6. It says, for thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth. So that's facts, man. And this is Isaiah 14:21. It says, prepare. Let's go back to what that article said. It says a new exhibition called Slavery has opened in Amsterdam, and amid suggestions, it's an issue that affects all Dutch people. Why isn't solely the responsibility of those linked to the slave trade to atone for their forefathers' sins? And it is their responsibility, because there's such thing as regeneration. So it says, and even if it wasn't, well, yeah. Let me see. Go back to it. It says, why isn't it solely the responsibility of those linked to the slave trade to atone for their forefathers' sins? Yeah, correct. Because right here, that scripture as well says, prepare slaughter for his children, for the iniquity of their fathers, that they do not rise nor possess the land nor fill the face of the world with cities. So yeah, that's scriptural. And they'll say that was in the past and they are their fathers, but there's such thing as regeneration. All right. And it's not just so-called Dutch, man. Israel was scattered, and just like Israel was scattered, the wicked spread his seed amongst everywhere. So the so-called Dutch, the so-called European, they all played a part in the captivity of the nation of Israel, who was the so-called Negro, Latino, Native American, according to the Holy Scriptures. All right, so then this right here says, so the comments of the museum director were particularly interesting when he discussed how the wealth bestowed and cruelty endured are not just relevant to the descendants of those enslaved. And they are just relevant to those that were enslaved, man. It says, Taco Dibbits said, obviously you would have to ask yourself, but I think with that he emphasizes that this is part of our history that concerns all people in the Netherlands, and not only the descendant of a slave. I mean, it's about me, it's about you, it's about the king himself, it's about everybody who lives in the country, man. Fuck that. There is no equality. All right. It says basically trying to make everybody one people, trying to make everybody on that equal playing field to have great confusion, man, to hide himself. And in scripture that the Lord would take that covering cast off of all nations. Okay, so this is First Maccabees 1:41. It says, moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people. And that's what they doing right there. It says, not only the descendant of a slave. I mean, it's about me, it's about you, it's about the king himself, it's about everybody who lives in the country. It's not about everybody that live in the country, because the curses don't fall on everybody in that country. Okay. It's about those that descended from our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You know, the 12 tribes. It's all about the elect, man. That's that's the only ones that matter. This is Isaiah 25:7. It says, he will destroy in this mountain the face of the covering cast. Says that he will destroy in this mountain. So mountains symbolize power, or governments. So here in the U.S., the U.S. is a mountain. It says the face of the covering cast. It's a covering cast of all people in this nation. The U.S. is a melting pot, so everybody's under, a certain covering cast that has been put over them. As we gonna get in the latter part of this verse, it says, and the veil that is spread over all nations. It's a veil over all nations. All the wickedness they have done, as well as what they are identified as today. Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, Caucasians, which they are the biblical Edomites. Everybody's under a covering cast. And everybody was put under a covering cast because the Edomite, Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, wanted to hide his identity, his true identity. All right, but in these latter days, he's being revealed. That skirt is being lifted up. All right, he's being made bare through the Spirit. I brought this out. It was edifying. Call Allah, Yahweh Shalom.